Okay, like I said, in this lesson, I'm not going to do a lot of teaching. I'm going to have you guys apply your knowledge to make you better thinkers. So, you have a formula sheet. Okay, so we're looking at the first example. What is your best guess as to where to start this problem? X and Y, okay? All right, so I have an X equals something and I have a Y equals something. Mm-hmm. I want something more than just repeating the formula. X equals 4. No. Okay, first of all, what is 3/4 pi? What is that? What's that called? What's the vocabulary for that type of angle? It's radius, okay? All right? This guy is called theta. Theta can be in blank or blank. Theta can be given to you in radians or degrees. I happen to give it to you in radians. Now look at your formula again. What do you want to say? X equals, okay, getting better, 4 cosine 3/4 pi. Okay? And so then what is y going to be? 4 sine 3/4 pi. What do you know about 3/4 pi? It's 135 degrees. Great. All right, talk to me about 135 degrees. We don't have a calculator. No calculator. This used to be non-calculator section. Come on, work with me. Talk to me about 135. It's in quadrant 2. Yes. The reference, good vocabulary, is 45 degrees. So now I can do the hand trick because I don't have my calculator in front of me, right? So 45 would be square root of 2 over 2. Remember, that replaces all of this. Cosine of 135 is the ratio square root of 2 over 2. Now, be careful. Yep, go ahead. That's what I was getting ready to ask. Go. Since it's in quadrant 2, cosine is negative. Okay? Now, I can do this. You should have learned this from our elementary school, that when I'm multiplying and dividing, I can cross simplify. So this becomes 2. That goes away. So I get negative 2 the square root of 2. Okay? What's this one going to be? 4 times positive square root of 2 over 2, because sine is positive in this quadrant. And that simplifies to 2 the square root of 2. So my final answer is negative 2 the square root of 2, comma 2 the square root of 2. Okay, think of rectangular as, so polar contains a degree or radian. Rectangular we think of as numbers, everyday numbers. So rectangular is what you learned in algebra when you learned to plot x and y. That's a rectangular grid. When you learned to plot an ordered pair, you learned it on a rectangular and x-y axis, a rectangular grid. A polar grid, I normally start with graphing, but I did it backwards this year. Polar is a more circular version of the rectangular grid that you're used to, okay? Good, and we'll look at those later in the week, okay? Ready to move on? Okay. So this is everyday numbers, which means it's in what form? Rectangular, and I want to go to polar. I provided you with some formulas to do that. What do you think I should do first? Plug it in, okay, so how would that look? 1 squared plus 3 squared Yep, my r squared equals that. So r squared equals 1 plus 9. R squared equals 10. R equals square root of 10. Great. Okay? What else do I need? I need a radius and I need a theta. So I need to find theta. What would I do? Tan 3 over 1. Now, some people first period, and I joined them, jumped into the hand trick and did 3 over 1. Yes? But the hand trick is really the square root of 3 over the square root of 1. So it is not this. So in this case, I have to do what? I have to use the calculator. Go ahead and use the calculator. This one you couldn't. Excellent. 71 degrees. Great. Now, we're just going to, yeah, so 71. It could bump up to 72. We'll just leave it at 71 for now because that's the first thing I heard. Okay, now, but we're not finished. All students take cash, right? So, I also need the angle here, right? So each time I move a quadrant, how many degrees do I move? Each quadrant's how many degrees? 90. So I went 90 and another 90, so I went 180. So my answers can be the square root of 10, 71, and the square root of 10, 251 degrees. Okay, good. That is the easy part of our task today. All right. That's converting ordered pairs. You must also be able to convert equations. Okay? Good? All right. Nope. Not ready. Okay. Okay, so rectangular is x comma y. Polar is radius comma theta. Okay? Rectangular is the grid that you're used to learning to plot on, and then this is a polar grid, which we will see later in the week. All right, so this equation is in what form right now? It has r and theta. So it's in polar, which means I want it in rectangular. Rectangular contains x's and y's, okay? All right, so what is a move you would like to make? If you look at all the rectangular equations, they're in the form r times something, yes? Okay, so what do you think I should do? Give me a guess. Yep. Get rid of secant? Okay, how would I get rid of secant? You're right. How would I get rid of it? Good job. Okay, well, just right now, let's not convert it. How would I get rid of it? How do I get rid of secant on this side? You divide. Excellent. Secant theta divide by secant theta, right? So when I'm dividing by it, I'm really going to multiply by its reciprocal. The reciprocal of secant is? The reciprocal operation is simply cosine. So this becomes r cosine theta, right? Because instead of dividing by it, I'm going to multiply by its reciprocal operation, yes? Okay, equals 4. Okay, my ultimate goal is to either get x, y, or a combination x or y. Does somebody see something else I can convert now? Yes, this is the same as x, so x equals 4. If I were to graph this, this would look like this. It would be a vertical line, x equals 4. Okay, that's traditional graphing that you learned in Algebra 1. Okay, because this is a traditional xy. Good. All right, I'll give you a second. Some of you are still copying. Okay, so can someone tell me what form this is in? It is in rectangular and I want it in polar. So this is one of the hardest ones you'd have to do, okay? Little confusing. we are going to do the algebraic math. So this squared becomes x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus y squared minus 4y plus 4 equals 13. I did basic algebra. So I did x minus 3 times x minus 3, did FOIL, and got this. Oh, sorry, this should be a y. Sorry. I wrote down the wrong variable. Okay, and I happen to do the shortcut because it's a perfect square. So the shortcut, square, square, double this. So x squared, negative 3 squared is 9. Double negative 3 times x is negative 6x. That's the shortcut. I don't think they teach that in algebra anymore. Okay, we good? All right, so what do I have on this side? I have a 13. Oh, guess what? What do I have here? 13, right? So that cancels and cancels that, yes? A 13 on the right cancels a 13 on the left. So now I have x squared minus 6x plus y squared minus 4y equals 0. All right, now I need some help. What can I convert to r's or thetas? What do you see? Oh, the x squared and the x squared and y squared. What does x squared and y squared make? R squared. Okay, so that takes care of that, R squared. 6x, 6x. What is x worth? No, look at your formula sheet. What's x worth? Okay, so 6 cosine x, yeah? Or not cosine x, sorry, cosine theta. Guess we did. Okay, and then what else? Minus 4 sine theta equals 0. And now we're done. So this should have, you're right, 7R and an R. Okay, because everything is in R's and thetas, right? This is rectangular to polar, and I know because X's and Y's is rectangular, polar is R's and thetas. It doesn't matter. Okay, we good? All right, so what you need to know. If it gives me X's and Y's, I need to rewrite everything until it's R's and theta. If it's R's and thetas, I need to rewrite everything until it's X, Y, or a combination of X's and Y. Okay, that is the key. All right, so let's look at a more complicated. This next one is the hardest one you would have to do. Okay, so you just told me a minute ago that R squared is x squared plus y squared, yes? So I want this to be an R squared. How can I make it an R squared? Okay, so the first thing I heard is that I would square it, right? So what I do to one side, I do the other. When I square this side, it gives me a cosine squared. Any of the formulas I provided with you have a cosine squared? No. What's another way to make this R squared? R times R. So what I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. So that gives me R squared equals 4R cosine theta. Yes, ma'am. Lost on the beginning step of this? Okay, so listen again. I want R to be squared because I have a formula for R squared. So the class said, hey, let's square both sides. If I do that, that becomes a cosine squared. Okay? When I look at, let me borrow this for a second. When I look at my formulas that I've provided to you, none of them have a sine or cosine squared, right? So then I ask, what's another way to make this R squared? if you multiply by r. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. Now, you with me? Yeah, that's why, okay? And in a moment, we're going to look at an example where squaring is better. Okay. Okay, you tell me. So rectangular is what you learn in algebra. So in algebra, you dealt with which two variables? X and Y. This contains an R. Look up here. This contains an R and a theta, which is polar. Okay, rectangular is X's and Y's. Polar is R and theta. Okay, so what do you know about R squared? Right, because my ultimate goal is to get everything with X's and Y's, right? So X squared plus Y, I messed that up, plus Y squared equals 4 what? What is this? 4x. Great. Now what would you like me to do? I heard it. Minus. Okay, so the last class had trouble with this. Remember, whenever there's a squared, you want it to equal 0. So we have x squared plus y squared minus 4x equals 0. No, we're not done. Okay, this one gets really ugly. Okay, so we have x squared minus 4x plus y squared equals 0. Well, the problem is I want an x squared and I want a y squared, so I have this extra minus 4x. Okay? Now, the last class informed me that this is still in Algebra 2. I know it was taught in Algebra 1. Okay? You ready? This is where it gets really tricky. I'm going to switch screens because when they switched my board, I haven't fixed it yet. I don't have the drop screen when I can normally hit the arrow and move the screen down, so I got to fix that, and I didn't fix that this morning. Okay. So, we have x squared minus 4x, and we have a y squared, and we have equals 0. Yes? Okay. Yes, question. Yes, it was x squared plus y squared minus 4x equals 0. Yes? So I put like variables next to each other, and I left some space, and there's a reason why. Okay? So the formula is some sort of x squared, some sort of y squared. This guy is messing me up right now. Who knows what I'm going to ask you to do? Can't just cancel it out. You had to learn it in Algebra 1. You did it again in Algebra 2. You tell me. Complete the square. Complete the square. Yeah, you had to complete the square. Who remembers how to complete the square? What do I do to this? Half of it. Good job. So negative 4 divided by 2 is a negative 2, and then I have to complete the square. Complete the square. I have to square it. What is it? 4. There's a 4. Now, what? Yes. Now, this here becomes x minus 2 squared. So I have an x that is squared plus y squared equals 4. Now it is done. Okay? Because now it's back in the shape of a circle. From geometry, you learn, okay, equation of a circle. So this is a circle that's been shifted to the right 2. Yes, ma'am. Okay, because when I completed the square, I can now factor this, which is x minus 2, and then square. Yes. Polars are circular equation. Okay? But although it can also be a horizontal line or a vertical line if there's only an x or a y. Yes. You take half of b and you square it. Half of b is -2, and -2 squared is 4. It's just 2 is one of those weird ones that when you multiply by itself or you multiply by 2, you get the same answer. Completing the square. Yes. And I had to figure out exactly what it is because I'm altering the equation. So what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Yes. No, sorry, that was just a pen carryover. Yeah, that was just a dot because I was pointing at that. Okay, we good? All right. So that is the hardest type you would be asked to do. Okay, so pause for a moment. All right, so we're going to go backwards. We're going to go with the easiest one. This one said r cosine theta equals 6. And the rule is this is in polar, so I want it to switch to x's and y's, or just an x or just a y. What did this become? Okay, do I have to go any further? Nope, problem done. Okay, over here we have r equals 8. What do we know about r? Not a heck of a lot. I know a formula for r squared. So how do I turn r to an r squared? You can square it. Why does squaring work this time and it didn't last time? Because there's no trig. So I can just square it. So r squared equals 64. But this isn't in x's and y's. It's not a line or a circle. Oh, x squared plus y squared equals 64. Am I done? Yep. Nope. Not for a circle. Your final of the circle. When you're trying to factor in stuff then. Yes. Okay? All right, moving on. Please go to number 7. Please attempt number 7. All right, so you were given x squared plus y squared equals 81. This is rectangular, so I need it in r's and thetas. So what does this become? R squared equals 81. And then you have to square root both sides because I want r, not r squared. So r equals 9. Problem done. Good? We've already done the hardest one you'd have to know. You're good. All right, so you right now are going to work on 1, 2, 5, 6, and 8. And I'm going to go over them. Work with your partners, and we're going to try to go over those before the bell rings. Yep. All right, let's start looking. All right, number 1. We have r equals the -4 cosine. Sorry, that shouldn't be r, that should be x. I wrote this wrong. This should be x and this should be y. Sorry. Okay, so x equals -4 cosine 5/3 pi, and y equals -4 sine. So 5/3 pi. Well, that's 300 degrees. 300 degrees is in quadrant 4. It is a reference of 60. Using the hand trick, the cosine of 60 is 1/2. Positive or negative if it's in quadrant 4. If you forgot, all students take cash. Cosine is positive. So it's a positive 1/2. So 1/2 of -4 is -2. Okay? Now, The sine of 300 is what? Hand trick. It's what? Square root of 3 over 2. Why did I put that it was negative? Because in quadrant 4, sine is negative. When I multiply these two together, to simplify, so this becomes a negative times a negative is a positive, making my final answer negative 2 comma 2 the square root of 3. So rectangular is normal everyday numbers that you can plot on an XY grid. Did I accomplish that? Yes, okay. Ready to move on to number 2? Okay. Let's look at problem number 2. Okay? So the formulas are r squared equals x squared plus y squared, which is what I did right here, making r the square root of 32. Yes? Okay. The second part is tangent of the angle. So when is tangent 1? What type of angle? That is actually a hand trick one. Equal sides. Equal on both sides is a 45, okay? So, because this is negative 1, tangent is negative here and here. The 45-degree angle here is 135, and the 45-degree angle in this neighborhood is 315. Good? Again, everything comes back around. You can't forget the hand tricks. You can't forget what quadrants are positive and negative. It all comes back to us. Okay, instinct, what do you think I should do? I'm going to divide by cosecant theta. Great. Dividing by cosecant theta is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal operation, which is sine. So I have r sine theta equals negative 5. What does r sine theta become? Y equals negative 5. If I were to graph this, this would be a horizontal line. Okay? All right, the next one is number 6. 6 is the ugliest one I assigned you for practice today. R equals 7 sine theta. Uh-oh. I don't know anything about R. I know r squared. But I can't square both sides because it has trig. So that would give me sine squared, which I can't do. So what am I going to do? Multiply both sides by r. So r squared equals 7r sine theta. Okay? X squared plus y squared equals 7y. So x squared plus y squared minus 7y equals 0. Give me a second. Okay, so let's pause there. Let everyone get caught up. Okay, guys. Now this is where it gets tricky, okay? So, if I'm going to put it in rectangular form, it either needs to make a line, vertically or horizontally, or it needs to make a circle. What is it pointing towards? Making a circle, because it has an x squared and a y squared, yes? But I have this extra guy right here. So in order to make it an x squared and a y squared, I must complete the square. So we have x squared plus y squared minus 7y plus blank equals 0 plus blank. Okay? So this is going to, oh, this is an ugly one. All right. This is going to be negative 3.5 squared, which is 12.25. Okay? So my answer is x squared plus y minus 3.5 squared equals 12.25. Problem done. Okay, so homework is number 8 and then 11 through 13. None of them are mean like this. This is the hardest one. Yes, we just don't have time to go over the answer to 8. Okay? So tonight, make sure 8 is done and then 11 through 13.